What's up, design family, and welcome back to another episode of Fittdesign TV. So glad to have you guys back on the channel. On today's episode, we'll be answering the age-old question: what is the difference between sportswear and activewear? Anyone who's been in the space for a while has probably heard these two terms, but honestly, you might not be familiar with what the core differences between these two types of brand segments are. On today's episode, I'll be answering and giving you a full breakdown of what the core difference is, and I'll be doing this quite quickly, and then I'll go into each of these two segments, explaining what activewear actually is and who it's for, and ultimately what sportswear is and what creates this core difference between them. By the end of this episode, you'll be able to have a much better understanding of these differences, as well as make a decision if you're interested in getting into this space in terms of which of the two is going to be the right direction for your brand. So if you've ever been interested in figuring out what these differences are, well, buckle up, you guys are in for a good one. Welcome to Fittdesign TV. Are you interested in sports fashion, design, and manufacturing? Are you establishing your own brand? You're looking good. Anthony, how are we doing? Do you want to? Thank you. Well, you've come to the right place. Lights, camera, action. For those of you who want the answer quickly, what is the difference between sportswear and activewear? Well, sportswear are clothing that are specifically designed for sports functional usage. Think of gym wear, think of clothing that is high compression, clothing that's meant to be weightlifted in, clothing that's specifically for Olympic lifting, swim gear, pretty much any specific type of attire that you actually use in a direct sports performance exercise is to be considered sportswear. On the flip side, activewear. Activewear takes on a more casual approach. It's specifically clothing pieces that have a sports-like appeal, but are meant to be used by people that are transitioning from the actual act of sports into a more casual setting. Let's take a closer and more in-depth look in terms of what activewear is. The segment of activewear actually is a type of clothing that is used predominantly by the type of person that is extremely interested in living an active lifestyle. In this segment, these clothes are meant to provide style along with comfort as well as function. And if you look at a lot of these clothing, they're made out of sustainable materials that have a focus on hand touch, hand feel, and being extremely comfortable to wear day in and day out. Some of the core pieces that we see in this segment are going to be things like joggers, hoodies, pants, crewneck sweaters, things that have a sports performance-like-esque appeal, but at the same time can gel in with a more casual, fashion-focused crowd. Think of the person that likes to spend a lot of time outdoors. They like to spend time swimming, running, yoga. Having clothing that allows them to transition from that activity into a more casual setting in a way that feels seamless and effortless. This is who the activewear segment is for. Also, bear in mind, activewear is not only clothing. You have a lot of accessories in the space, footwear, pretty much anything that someone who lives an active lifestyle might need to be able to allow them to live that active lifestyle, but at the same time have their fashion pieces that allow them to be comfortable, that allow them to actually be integrated in terms of their day-to-day routine. This is who activewear is for. Some of the top activewear brands that you've probably heard of are going to be brands like Lululemon, Athleta, Fabletics. These are all great examples and brands that you most likely heard of before. So on the flip side, what is sportswear? In short, sportswear are clothing, shoes, accessories that have a specific focus and are designed specifically for sports performance. Think of the running short, think of the swimming trunk, think of all of the clothing that you use on a day-to-day basis to perform specific sports activities and specific sports exercises. A lot of these sports items have a very high focus on fabric performance, fabric stretch, thermal insulation, thermal retention. They have more of a focus on the actual performance and functional nature of the clothing rather than the fashion-focused nature of the clothing. Think of your favorite running short. A running short has not only to perform in terms of looking good, but at the same time it has to be lightweight. It has to be durable, so it might have to be made out of a woven fabric. That woven fabric also allows it to be extremely lightweight. It allows it to break the wind. It allows it to be used in a variety of different settings. It's water resistant, so it can be used on a rainy day and it could be used on a dry day. All these things are inherently baked into the running short. So when it comes to the core differences between your sportswear segment and your activewear segment, Sportswear is specifically a lot more limited in terms of the varieties of items that you can create. There's a lot more rules and regulations that you have to adhere by, specifically because sportswear is a highly functional type of garment. So you have to check off a ton of different boxes. Versus activewear, you have a lot more creative rules, or you have a lot more creative space to play with to create fashion-focused items that are still functional, but are more comfort-focused and are more fashion-focused. So when it comes to who each of these different types of brand segments are for, if you're looking to adhere to the person that is extremely interested in performance, is living a day-to-day active lifestyle that is specifically in a ton of different training sessions, whether they're athletes or amateur athletes or student athletes, I think gym wear and sportswear is going to be more of the direction you want to go to. The advantages here is that you have more of a guiding principle in terms of what you can create. Activewear, on the flip side, is a lot more fashion focused. You have less rules and regulations, and you have a lot more variety in terms of what you can do. But what I do find is with activewear, there's a lot more competition. A lot more brands are actually getting into this space just because there's less of a nature of control, of direction. And what you notice is a lot of beginner brands sort of gravitate towards that space. They find it an easier avenue to get into, which is not necessarily a good thing. You end up with a lot more variety, but at the same time, you don't end up with a lot more quality products and quality brands that you can choose from. So if you're going to the activewear realm, you're going to have more of a designed focused approach. You're going to need to look at your target customer, understand what their day-to-day needs are. You're going to need to find small pockets of information that are going to allow you to enhance the design of the pieces, not only to make them more beautiful, but also to make them more functional. Think about the target customer and their day-to-day voyages and their day-to-day sort of transitions. What do they need? What are they missing? Are they commuting by train, by bus, by car? Are they on bike? Where do they spend most of their time? If they're going out, where are they going out? Think of all this and use these small pockets of information to actually tailor make and to tailor design beautiful activewear. On the flip side, for sportswear, think of the most strenuous and the most arduous settings for your clothing. Try to put them through their paces. Create clothing that your customers don't have to think twice about. Your customers can take full confidence in when they're performing. The last thing you want is for a customer to buy a piece of clothing for you and for it to actually be put through its paces, whether it's through running or swimming or weightlifting, and for it to fail in that performance test. So take heed of both of these two different types of segments. They're both extremely interesting segments, both of which are highly needed. They're only growing in their standards and their pace, and choose the one that you feel is most directly right for you. Sportswear versus activewear, what is the difference? Think of activewear as the type of casual, but yep, 1, 2, 3. Sportswear or activewear, what is, I need to do the outro. 1, 2, 3. So if you guys are still confused in terms of which of the two segments you should most likely direct your attention towards, consider booking a consultation call with me one-on-one. I hold limited slots every single week, and I'd love to hear what your core goals are for your brand, and I can help guide you and put you in the right direction in terms of which of the two might be the right option for you. Guys, if you enjoyed this episode, please consider smashing a massive thumbs up. It really does help us out. It keeps us motivated to keep creating and producing this content for you. So thank you so much for tuning in to this episode of Fittdesign TV. Until next week's episode, stay awesome.